To answer this question, I need to graph the function 2x squared minus 6x plus 4 on my GDC. And to be able to sketch it, first of all, I'll need to make sure I include all key points of information. So I'll need to look at, for example, where this y-intercept is going to be, and also where my two x-intercepts are going to be. In this case, they can be read off quite easily, but alternatively, I could do that by using analyze graph and the zero function here to find each of those points. So I can see that I've got one at 1, 0, one at 2, 0, so I can then include that when I do my sketch and write those points down. And also I can find any point using the trace function, and you can see that's snapped actually to the point 0, 4, which is my y-intercept. I can press enter and it will actually save that point for me to refer back to later if I want to, even if I move the cursor away from that point of 0, 4. Let's now press escape to get out of that. So now to do a good sketch, I've got a good sense of what this looks like. I'll probably want to zoom in a little bit because I've got a lot of wasted space on this graph here. So maybe if I start this more like at -2 and then go up maybe a little bit higher to 10, and then here I can see I've got a lot more wasted space, so maybe if I only go up as far as 5 and start a little bit higher up at maybe -1, I've now got a graph that is filling my paper much better. I can get a much better sense of what the shape of this to be able to draw it. And also in my sketch I should really give an idea of where my axes are starting from and where they're finishing. So I've got an approximate sense of scale on that sketch. The next question then asks me if I can work out what the domain and range is going to be for this function. So the domain is basically on the x values. Are there any x values for which this graph is not able to be drawn? And I can see this is a continuous graph. If I go across from left to right, there is no point on that x-axis where the graph isn't being drawn at a certain y point. So I can go all the way across here, and that graph is being drawn all the way as I go across down here. Okay, so what I can say therefore is that the domain is that x is an element of the real numbers. X is an element of R. For the y values, if I look at the y values, if I start up here, I can see that the graph is being drawn. But when I get to a point a little bit further down, below this point here, below this minimum point here, I can't actually then draw a graph anymore. There's nothing. The graph doesn't exist below this minimum point. So what I'm going to do, let's move that out of the way. What I'm going to do is try and figure out where is that minimum point, because that's the lowest y value that I can possibly have with this particular function. So I'll go on to, I could do it on trace, or I could go analyze graph and go minimum and select over that minimum point. So I can now see that the lowest y value this takes is -0.5. So I would therefore say that y is greater than or equal to -0.5. It could be equal to -0.5 because it does reach this minimum point, but it can't be anything lower. So y is greater than or equal to -0.5.